The staircase leading to Riverside High School's main entrance never looked so threatening before. Each step was a reminder of yesterday's accident at home. My arm throbbed in its makeshift sling, Mom's old scarf wrapped carefully to hide the bruising. I was 17, and this wasn't the first time I had to craft creative ways to hide my injuries. I'm Alex Mitchell, and until yesterday, I was pretty good at keeping my father's temper our family secret. That was before he lost it over my acceptance letter to the state arts program, a future he hadn't chosen for me. "You're going to law school like every Mitchell man before you," he'd roared, waving my acceptance letter like it was evidence of a crime. When I stood my ground, telling him I wanted to study photography, something in his eyes changed. That's when he pushed me. I remember the moment with crystal clarity, the way time seemed to slow down as I fell backward, the sharp edges of each step cutting into my back, the final crack when I landed on my arm. Mom's horrified gasp from the top of the stairs, followed by her practiced recovery. "Get up, Alex. You're fine," she'd said, helping me to my feet. "We don't need to tell anyone about this. Your father, he's under a lot of stress at the firm." The same excuses, different day. What nobody knew was that Ms. Walker, my photography teacher, had been working late in her classroom. Her window faced our house, just across from the school. She'd seen everything. I tried to slip into first period unnoticed, but Ms. Walker was waiting by the door. Her eyes went straight to my arm, then to my face. There was something different in her expression, not the usual pity I'd seen from teachers who suspected but never acted. "Alex, can we talk after class?" she asked quietly. I nodded, my throat tight. The day crawled by in a haze of pain and anxiety. Mom had refused to take me to the hospital, convinced we could handle it at home like always. "It's just a sprain," she'd insisted, though we both knew it was worse. During lunch, I hid in the photography lab, my sanctuary. The walls were covered with student photos, moments of life frozen in time. My latest series hung in the corner, shadows and light, close-up shots of everyday objects that looked completely different in changing light. Ms. Walker said they showed promise. Dad said they showed I was wasting my time. When the final bell rang, I made my way back to Ms. Walker's classroom. She was at her desk, grading papers, but I could see a folder marked with my name sitting prominently in front of her. "Sit down, Alex," she said, gesturing to a chair. "We need to talk about what I saw yesterday." My heart started racing. "I fell," I said automatically. "I'm clumsy sometimes." She opened the folder and pulled out several photographs. My breath caught in my throat. They were screenshots from her classroom security camera, showing our house clearly through the window. The sequence was unmistakable. My father's aggressive stance, the push, my fall. "The camera runs 24/7, she explained gently. "It's meant to protect the photography equipment, but yesterday it captured something much more important." Tears burned in my eyes. Years of carefully constructed lies began to crumble. "Your work shows such sensitivity, such understanding of light and shadow." She continued, pulling out my portfolio. "But there's pain in these images too. I should have seen it sooner." I stared at my photos through blurry eyes. She was right. Every shot was about hiding and revealing, just like my life at home. "I can't show these to anyone," I whispered. "He'll kill me." "No, he won't," Ms. Walker said firmly, "because I've already sent copies to the police and Child Protective Services. They're waiting to talk to you when you're ready. You don't have to go home today." The relief hit me so hard I could barely breathe. In photography, we talk about the decisive moment, that split second when everything aligns to create the perfect shot. This was my decisive moment. "What about my mom?" I asked. "She always covers for him." "There's help for her too," Ms. Walker assured me. "But right now, we need to get your arm properly treated. The school nurse is waiting." As we walked to the nurse's office, I could see police cars pulling up to the school. This was really happening. The secret was out. "Your father doesn't get to destroy your dreams, Alex," Ms. Walker said, stopping outside the nurse's door. "Your photography isn't just a hobby, it's your voice, and it's time for your voice to be heard." I touched my camera, still faithfully hanging around my neck despite everything. Through my lens, I learned to capture truth in its rawest form. Now, thanks to another camera and a teacher who refused to look away, my own truth was finally coming to light. The nurse's door opened and I saw concerned faces waiting inside. The nurse, a police officer, a social worker. This was the moment everything would change. "Ready?" Ms. Walker asked. I gripped my camera like a lifeline and nodded. For the first time in years, I was ready to step out of the shadows. The emergency room was a blur of x-rays, questions, and gentle hands treating my injuries. The break in my arm was clean but required surgery, evidence of the force behind my father's push. As the doctors worked, Ms. Walker stayed nearby, her presence a steady anchor in the chaos. Multiple healed fractures, I heard one doctor murmur while examining my x-rays. Years of abuse. Each old injury told its own story. The basketball accident that was really a shove into the garage wall. The skateboarding mishap that happened when I tried to run away. My mother arrived at the hospital, her perfectly applied makeup unable to hide her panic. "Alex, sweetie, you need to tell them the truth. You fell. You know how clumsy you can be." Her voice held that familiar pleading tone, the one that had kept me silent for years. But this time was different. I had proof. I had support. I had Ms. Walker standing beside me, holding a folder containing those damning photographs. "Mrs. Mitchell," the social worker intervened, "we need to talk about what happens next. Alex will be placed in temporary protective custody while we investigate." My mother's facade cracked. "You can't take my son. We're a respectable family. My husband is a partner at Mitchell and Associates. This is all a misunderstanding." "Is this a misunderstanding too?" Ms. Walker asked quietly, showing my mother the photographs. I watched as she sank into a chair, her carefully constructed world crumbling. "He promised he'd change," she whispered, more to herself than to us. After each time, he promised. The next few days passed in a whirlwind. I was placed with an emergency foster family, the Hendersons, who lived just blocks from school. They had a small photography studio in their basement where Mr. Henderson did portrait work. When he saw my portfolio, he immediately offered to mentor me. News of my father's arrest spread quickly through our small town. The prestigious Mitchell and Associates law firm scrambled to distance itself from the scandal. My father's partners voted to remove his name from the company, ending 3 generations of Mitchell legacy. At school, whispers followed me through the hallways. Some students avoided me, unsure how to act around the boy whose perfect family life had been exposed as a lie. Others, surprisingly, started sharing their own stories of hidden pain. Ms. Walker transformed her photography club into a safe space for students to express their struggles through art. My Shadows and Light series became the centerpiece of a special exhibition titled Breaking Silence. Each photo now carried new meaning, not just artistic compositions, but testimony to survival. During my father's bail hearing, I brought my camera. Through my lens, I captured him in his orange jumpsuit, his powerful frame diminished by handcuffs. The man who had terrified me for so long looked small through the viewfinder. Click. A decisive moment. My mother started therapy, finally confronting decades of enabling behavior. She moved in with my aunt and filed for divorce. "I should have protected you," she told me during a supervised visit. "I was so afraid of breaking our family that I let him break you instead." The Hendersons helped me apply for early admission to the state arts program. My portfolio, now including the documentary series of my father's court proceedings, earned me a full scholarship. The judges were particularly moved by a self-portrait I took in the hospital. My broken arm in the foreground, soft light streaming through the window, creating what they called a powerful statement about vulnerability and strength. One afternoon, while developing photos in the school darkroom, Ms. Walker brought me an envelope. Inside was a letter from a national domestic violence prevention organization. They wanted to use my photographs for their new awareness campaign. "Your art is giving others the courage to speak up," she said, watching me read the letter. "You're turning your pain into purpose." I thought about all the times I'd hidden behind my camera, using it as a shield against my father's rage. Now it had become my sword, cutting through years of silence and secrets. The preliminary hearing was approaching, and prosecutors had a strong case. Between Ms. Walker's security footage, my medical records, and my mother's testimony, my father faced significant prison time. His legal colleagues refused to represent him. No one wanted to defend the man who had tarnished their firm's reputation. "Are you ready to tell your story in court?" the prosecutor asked during our prep session. I lifted my camera, now free of the crack it had sustained during my fall. Through its repair, I had learned that broken things could be made stronger. "I've been telling my story through these pictures all along," I replied. "Now I'm ready for everyone to see the truth." Ms. Walker was right. Photography wasn't just my hobby or even my future career. It was my voice, my witness, my way of ensuring that what happened in the shadows would finally come to light. And this time, I wasn't afraid to show the world exactly what that light revealed. The courtroom was a study in contrasts, perfect for a photographer's eye. My father, once imposing in his tailored suits, now looked washed out in prison orange. Through my lens, I captured his transformation from respected attorney to revealed abuser. Each photo would become part of my newest series, Justice in Focus. The evidence was overwhelming. Ms. Walker's security footage played on the courtroom screens, showing years of documented incidents. My medical records told a story of systematic abuse disguised as childhood accidents. But it was my photographs that brought the truth home, especially the self-documentation series I'd unconsciously created over the years. The defendant systematically abused his position of power, the prosecutor stated, displaying my images. These photographs, taken by his son, tell a story of survival through art. My father's attorney tried to paint me as a troubled teen seeking attention. These artistic photographs could be interpreted many ways, he argued. They're merely metaphors, not evidence. I sat in the witness box, my camera beside me like a faithful companion. Each photo tells a truth I couldn't speak, I testified. The shadowed staircase, the broken mirrors, the locked doors. They were my way of documenting what was happening when I had no other voice. The Hendersons sat behind me, their support unwavering. Mr. Henderson had helped me prepare a special portfolio for the court, showing the progression of my work from hidden pain to open testimony. Besides me, Ms. Walker waited to testify, the original security footage secure in her hands. My mother's testimony was perhaps the most devastating. I chose his reputation over my son's safety, she admitted, her voice shaking. Every time I covered up a bruise or explained away an injury, I was helping him maintain his facade of perfection. During a break in proceedings, I went to the courthouse bathroom and found myself face to face with my father. For a moment, we just stared at each other, guard hovering nearby. Then I did something that surprised us both. I raised my camera and took his picture. Still hiding behind that stupid camera, he sneered. No, I replied, checking the image on my screen. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm revealing. The jury took less than 2 hours to reach a verdict. Guilty on all counts. As they read out the sentence, 15 years with no possibility of early parole, I photographed my father's face. The moment his mask finally cracked completely was caught in perfect focus. 6 months later, my Breaking Silence exhibition opened at the State Art Gallery. The show combined my earlier work with a courthouse series, telling a complete story of abuse, survival, and justice. The proceeds would go to a new foundation Ms. Walker and I had started, providing cameras and art therapy to young survivors of domestic violence. My mother came to the opening night. She was different now, stronger, no longer hidden behind perfect makeup and practiced smiles. She stopped at each photograph, really seeing them for the first time. I never understood what your photography meant, she said, tears in her eyes. Each picture was crying for help, and I didn't hear it. But others did, I replied, glancing at Ms. Walker, who was showing the Hendersons my latest work. The exhibition's centerpiece was a triptych, the staircase where I fell, the security camera that caught it, and a self-portrait taken on my first day of art school, arm healed and camera in hand. From darkness to light, from silence to truth. My state arts program professors called it groundbreaking work. Several galleries requested to show the exhibition, but more importantly, it was helping others. After each showing, more people came forward with their own stories of abuse and survival. The Hendersons helped me set up a small studio where I could work with other young survivors, teaching them to use photography as both documentation and healing. Art saved my life, I would tell them. It can save yours too. A year after the trial, I received a letter from my father. I photographed it unopened, sitting on my desk in morning light, then filed it away. Maybe someday I'd read it, but for now, I was focused on the future, not the past. Ms. Walker retired from teaching but continued mentoring young photographers. The security camera still runs in her old classroom, now maintaining its original purpose of protecting equipment. Sometimes I visit, looking at that window that changed everything. Ready for your guest lecture? Ms. Walker asked, joining me in her old classroom. I was speaking to her photography club about using art for advocacy. I picked up my camera, running my fingers over its familiar surfaces. Through this lens, I learned to see truth, to capture pain, and ultimately to find freedom. Every click of the shutter was a reminder that I'd found my voice, and I was never going to be silenced again. Ready, I said, and meant it. There are still so many stories that need to be brought into the light. Together, we walked toward the classroom full of students, each holding cameras like shields, ready to learn how to turn their lenses toward truth.